Welcome to Coppergate. We are standing in a very special place where modern shopping centre sits directly atop one of the most important archaeological discoveries in all of Britain. The street name, Coppergate, tells part of the story. Like many streets in Europe, the word gate comes from the Old Norse word gata, meaning street. This was a Viking street, and it was alive with tradesmen and merchants. Look above us. We are walking along the Coppergate Walk, famous today for the seasonal Walk. This street is transformed into a colorful, ever-changing ceiling of umbrellas. Themes change throughout the year, from rainbow flags, to florals, to the Union Jacks. This display has made this street a favorite for people taking photographs. If you are here in October, you will see the umbrellas replaced by broomsticks and ghosts. However, the real story here is not what's above us, but what is directly beneath our feet. Before this shopping center was built, this site was a factory. In the 1970s, archaeologists started digging. What they found was absolutely astounding. Between 1976 and 1981, they uncovered the astonishing remains of 10th century Viking-age buildings from the Viking city of Jorvik. What made this site unique was the condition of the soil. The remains were buried in moist, spongy earth. This damp, airless environment provided perfect preservation. Because of the preservation, archaeologists didn't just find stone foundations. They found the remains of everyday Viking life, preserved wood from houses, leather shoes, pieces of cloth, insects, and even the preserved contents of a Viking toilet. This was an unprecedented discovery. Over 40,000 objects were uncovered from the digging. When the scale of this discovery was realized, the plans for a simple shopping center were changed. Instead of just covering up the excavation site, the York Archaeological Trust made a brilliant decision. They decided to permanently display the remains in situ, right within the original excavation area. In 1984, the Jorvik Viking Center opened to the public. It was built right here, directly over the preserved Viking foundations and layers of earth. When you visit the center, you are actually traveling over the excavated streets and houses. The exhibits are all based on the evidence unearthed right beneath our feet. The Coppergate Center that you see today is an open-air shopping promenade. It features covered walkways and public squares. It is also home to St. Mary's Church, a beautiful medieval building that has been preserved and now displays modern art. So, as you shop or look up at the umbrellas, remember that you are walking over the preserved streets of Jorvik. This entire area is a historical anchor, where the modern retail world is built directly upon the most intimate remains of the Viking Age. This is a fascinating walk. Unlike many of York's ancient streets, Clifford Street is actually quite modern, yet it is utterly surrounded by deep, dramatic history. We are starting our walk on Clifford Street, looking toward the old city center, near the junction with Castlegate. Clifford Street has a very clear birth date. It was constructed around 1881. Before then, this entire area was a dense tangle of small houses and narrow medieval alleys. By the late 19th century, the city recognized a massive problem. They needed better access to the new Skeldergate Bridge, and the old routes were simply too narrow. So, the city made a radical choice. They tore down what was widely considered a slum area, clearing the old houses and alleys to slice this wide, straight street right through the urban area. This street was named Clifford Street after the huge, visible landmark just ahead, Clifford's Tower. Look at the buildings lining the street. They are mostly tall, striking, and built of red brick, often featuring ornate stonework. They are all products of the late Victorian boom that created this street. The architecture is grand, designed to show off the city's progress and wealth. You can see buildings like the former York Institute of Art and Science and the Magistrates' Court. These were the institutions of a modern, organized city, law, learning, and civic authority, all built right here to signal the new era. As we walk, you can see how the new Victorian street had to conform to the old medieval property lines, creating some of the uniquely tall and narrow buildings you see here today. On our right, we pass the Friends Meeting House. This community was based in this area since the 1600s. When Clifford Street was built, they simply added a new, grand entrance onto the new road, adapting their ancient establishment to the modern streetscape. We are now approaching the junction with Tower Street. This street is old. It was once called Castlegate Poston Lane, and it was the narrow lane that led past the base of the castle mound before Clifford Street existed. Notice how Tower Street curves around the perimeter of the former castle site. This whole area was once a massive Norman castle complex, established by William the Conqueror in the year 1068. We finish our walk here, right below the moat of Clifford's Tower. This entire street is named for this famous landmark. The tower that stands atop the hill today sits on an earth mound that was the site of the horrific massacre of York's Jewish community in 1190. That tragic event saw the Jewish community besieged and forced to take their own lives inside the original wooden tower. So, Clifford Street is a place of contrast, a straight, modern, Victorian street built for efficiency, leading directly to the medieval castle ruins, which hold one of the darkest and most significant stories in the city's history.